I honestly love the Peak Design straps, so when I saw the micro clutch on Kickstarter, I immediately thought it'd be great for my X100V. And after a couple weeks of using it, I can't say I'm really in love with it. So let's talk about why. Now before we start, let me preface, just because I don't love the micro clutch doesn't mean you won't. It's really a product that has to deal with how you like to hold and carry your camera. So if I don't like it, it doesn't mean you won't. With that, let's get on to the full review. Let's start off with the build quality first. Like any Peak Design product, the micro clutch is no different. It feels really high quality, the materials are strong, they feel premium. Despite the premium build quality and materials, I am a little nervous about the holes you use to adjust the size. I think if you're putting that pin in and adjusting the size often, it may wear out faster than you'd like. Obviously time will tell, but it's just something to consider and maybe be worried about if you think you'll be adjusting the size often. On to how the micro clutch feels to use. I really like the grip that this grip creates. I feel really secure holding my X100V with it, but it did take some time to get there. It takes time to adjust and figure out the proper sizing before you really feel confident holding your camera with just two fingers. That being said, I am a little nervous about using a bigger camera with it. I'm using my X100V, which is a rather light camera, but I think if I had the L plate using it with my A7 IV and the Tamron 35-150, I wouldn't feel super secure with it. I just think it needs to be a little beefier for a heavier setup. Obviously, I can't test that because I only have the I plate. That's just my thoughts after using it with just the X100V. Who knows, it may work okay for bigger cameras, but personally, I'm not running out to buy one for my A7 IV. I just don't think it would be comfortable with that setup. Now, once your fingers are in the micro clutch, it feels really confident to use, but getting your fingers in there can be hard. It kind of feels like you're jamming them in if your size isn't dialed in perfectly correctly. That's why I stressed earlier, making sure the size is perfect is super important. It takes time, so don't get discouraged if at first it doesn't feel super comfortable. Make micro adjustments until it fits great. That being said, it can be a little frustrating in the beginning, just try not to lose hope. And believe me, I know how bad that sounded. I don't know how else you're going to talk about putting your fingers in something and it not sound bad. Now let's talk about the big elephant in the room, changing the battery with the micro clutch. It isn't terrible. It takes me about a minute in total, give or take 15 seconds. That being said, if you're on a client shoot, it doesn't look great. It's hard to do, the little tool they include doesn't give you enough leverage and it's a bit too small for my hands, so I always felt like I was going to drop it. It just doesn't seem professional on a client shoot, and it loses precious time. If you're shooting street photography or out with your family and friends, where you can take your time, it's not a big deal, then the micro clutch could be perfect. But I really can't see using the micro clutch in a professional setting. It just feels too clunky. Whether it's needing to change the battery fast, or the small tool not giving you enough leverage, or if you put the small tool back in the wrong way, it can get stuck. I actually needed pliers to pull mine out. It just feels like it's a clunky user experience, especially when you're in a professional high-stakes shoot. For running around with family or shooting street photography, it's totally usable and it doesn't bother me. I just wouldn't want to take it on a shoot with a paid client. The one thing I really dislike most about using the Peak Design micro clutch is how the strap sits. When you're using the anchor points with the Peak Design straps, I find the X100V with the I plate really just didn't sit right on my hip. It kept moving forward and it wasn't comfortable. It stuck out more than if I was just using the leash without any of the micro clutch attachments. It made the user experience really tough for me. I'm someone that likes using a strap. If you don't use a strap, you won't notice this, but if you were planning on using a strap with your micro clutch, you may want to reconsider just because it's not very comfortable on your hip. Maybe this is just me, but something tells me that other people who want to keep their camera profile really slim and minimal won't like the micro clutch with a strap. So, should you buy the micro clutch? It really depends on what type of shooter you are. If you're a professional shooter on high-stakes shoots who's constantly running out of battery or changing batteries and needs to look professional when with clients, the micro clutch definitely isn't for you. But if you're an average hobbyist photographer or a street photographer who isn't necessarily in as high-stake environments, the micro clutch could be perfect. That being said, if you like to use a strap with your camera, you may not like the micro clutch at all. If you like to handhold your camera, the micro clutch is a no-brainer. But for strap users, the micro clutch isn't going to replace a strap. At least that's how I felt as someone who really likes to use a strap with their camera. If you like the micro clutch really depends on you. It's a personal feeling type thing. I hope this video helped you decide if you personally think you'll like the micro clutch. For now, thanks for watching and go shoot some photos.